Being part of that network has been incredible. I think it's a key tool in our armory, but it shouldn't be compulsory. One of my big learnings is that you really need to know your self-worth and value. So it is a subject I am so deeply passionate about. I absolutely love what you guys are doing. It's really all that I stand for.
Hey guys, welcome back to the More Than Medics podcast. In this week's episode, we welcome Dr. Ali Jaffee, a London-based multi-award-winning NHS doctor and content creator, specialising in psychiatry and passionate about mental health. She is also the co-founder of NutriTank, an innovative organisation that fills the gap in nutrition education. Join us as Ali shares her inspiring journey of innovation, content creation, advocacy, and her vision for shaping a healthier future.
So it's lovely to chat to you, Ali, today. As someone who's worked with the NutriTank and known you for quite a number of years now, honestly, it's so inspiring to have you on and actually talk about your amazing work, not only within NutriTank and nutrition education, but also your work within content creation and kind of empowering the public to learn more about health. So yeah, I was wondering, first off, can you just introduce yourself and tell us about your journey to medicine?
Absolutely. So, hi everybody. I am a psychiatry resident doctor in my first year, and I'm a content creator, a youth mental health charity trustee, and a mental health advocate, and the co-founder of NutriTank, as you said. And my journey into medicine started at 19 after a forced gap year, as I didn't get in first time round. And I always say how important it is to try again. And I genuinely am so glad I didn't get in first time round as well, because the gap year that I took involved just very much maturing and learning about what my interests were, alongside reapplying and working part-time to save up for traveling and blah, blah, blah. But in that year is where I discovered my passion for holistic healthcare and nutrition. So had I not taken that year, because I didn't get into med school first time round, I wouldn't have realised what really kind of took my fancy prior to starting medical school, to be able to be quite focused at medical school.
Amazing. And I think the way, I don't know if you'd describe your career like this, but I guess a term that's always thrown around is like portfolio career. Would you kind of identify yourself with that? And if so, can you tell us more about your kind of career now?
Yeah, 1000% identify with that. And I'm so glad there were so many people before me, namely GPs, who really showcased the beauty of a portfolio career. So for those that don't know, a portfolio career is when you are still in clinical practice, but you've got your foot in many other doors, whether that's being like Dr. Zoe Williams, who's a GP, but she's also a physical activity champion for RCGP. She's a TV doctor and does a lot of other health communications. And for me, I think it gives so much variety, and variety is like such a spice of life. And it is actually what kind of fills my cup and helps with my own well-being, because I feel like I'm someone who's very multi-passionate. And as much as I love clinical medicine, I feel like my mindset is I can only ever help X number of patients in a week. But by being a content creator or a public speaker or working for a digital startup, for instance, you can affect like 5x lives or even more. It's an exponential number of lives that you can affect by using your skills as a doctor, but in another setting. So I think the portfolio career is incredible, but it's not for everyone. Some people do like to be in a kind of routine and have the same kind of week, so that they can really have a pattern that they can get used to. For me, I'm quite erratic and scatty as a person quite naturally, so variety is something that I really buzz off.
Amazing. And I think that's really important, the idea of like you can make so much more of an impact by utilizing your knowledge and skills in those other areas that you're also interested in. So as long as you have that passion, like you said, for example, content creation, med tech, etc., you can really, broaden that impact you make. So to come on to your content creation, can you just expand on, why did you get started on doing more content creation, and what kind of sparked that interest?
Yeah, it's funny. I never used to like social media. So I was like the last of my friends to get Instagram. I think I got Instagram at 19, like primarily before I went traveling, so that I can kind of just keep my friends and family posted on what I was doing. But I was never interested in it at school. And I think it came to kind of my year group when we were like 17 or so. And I was never really interested in it throughout medical school. And even when we started NutriTank, I couldn't think of anything worse than doing the social media for NutriTank. I did it because I needed to, but it wasn't something I enjoyed. Didn't really see the point, blah blah blah. And then when I went through my own depressive episode halfway through medical school, I realized how much I wanted to share my story and how important storytelling was, and that you can't be what you can't see. And I gained so much inspiration from other accounts that I followed that I actually realized I really wanted to use the tool of social media to essentially help others, but also to kind of keep myself accountable as well and be able to open myself up to other opportunities. I'm really big on connections. So I actually don't know why I never liked social media before. It was probably because I was still just growing and maturing, but I'm very big on being able to meet as many people who are like-minded and learn from them. So I mainly started creating content um, when I went back to medical school after I'd recovered from depression, in the hopes to share my story with other healthcare professionals. And then it kind of spiraled from there, and I've realized how it's very much one of my key strings to my bow. That's the expression, because it really allows me to showcase what I'm doing and then also be able to see what other people are doing so that we can create um solid working relationships. And you literally, if you don't ask you don't get, if you can't see what you can't be. So I love being able to see what cool things other doctors are up to, as well as being able to reach out to startups that I'm interested in working in. So yeah, still working it out though. Wouldn't say I'm an expert by any stretch.
Do you think it's important for medics, doctors to use social media? Nowadays, it's becoming more and more common. Do you think that's a good thing?
I think it's a key tool in our armory, but it shouldn't be compulsory. So it very much should be based on whether you feel you're in a mentally stable position to be putting yourself in the public eye, and whether it's something you enjoy, because I'm big on enjoyment equals efficiency. And so if you're just doing it and it's a drag and you've
Yeah.
already got a very busy schedule as a medic, why bother? For me, I fit it in quite easily because I just do it in opportune moments and I enjoy it. So
Mhm.
I don't think it should be seen as of everything. There's no one size fits all. I think it is a wonderful tool, but then again, so is research. And I'm not someone that would necessarily want to be constantly reading papers and doing research. So everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Um, and yeah, different strokes for different folks. So I think it has the most powerful potential to spread credible health information. And we see the head of YouTube Health, Dr. Vishal Virani, who recently spoke at a conference that I organised on Monday just gone about nutrition misinformation. And he talks a lot about information as a determinant of health. And so we know how many people are accessing social media, especially millennials and Gen Z. So if we can make information that's credible and evidence-based around health as accessible as possible, it's truly a determinant of someone's health. And they can identify, oh gosh, maybe I do need to go book an appointment with my GP, or I need to take my family member to A&E straight away. This is serious. So I do think it's wonderful, but it's not for everyone.
Mm. Kind of coming on to that point about misinformation, I think that's something that I'm very aware of. There's so much misinformation out there in the content creation world. And I remember seeing your conference on Monday. Like I was like, that's amazing that you're doing that and kind of promoting that work. And I'm also aware you've been chosen for the TikTok Clinical Council. Can you tell us more about that role and how that kind of fits into tackling this issue of misinformation in the media?
Absolutely. So it's a subject I am so deeply passionate about. It's always making my blood boil when I see things online from like fitness and wellness influencers who are just really proactively grifting.
Mm.
And really exploiting people's vulnerabilities, especially when it comes to weight loss and especially when it comes to mental health solutions, because so many people who are looking for this information are vulnerable. So they're not necessarily critically thinking about who's supplying the information. Are they using extremist language? Is it very non-binary? Is there any nuance? Blah, blah, blah. So it's something that I feel is not tackled enough from a systems approach, and there's definitely not enough regulation. I think it's wonderful that big tech are now essentially being accountable in some ways and stepping forward. So we've seen YouTube kind of leading this space with YouTube Health, as I mentioned, and they've got a health shelf whereby when you type into YouTube a question about your health, like what is depression? How do I know if I have it? They will get you to a credible, verified healthcare content creator who is part of their health shelf and has gone through a strict criteria so that you don't just essentially stumble upon an unregulated piece of content. And so they've been doing that for a while. I've not seen anything from Meta, which I think is really disappointing, like truly disappointing. I've not seen any misinformation efforts from them. So boo Meta. And then TikTok, we know has huge problems with misinformation. If you just type in gut talk, which is a gut health hashtag, it's actually crazy the number of just misinformed videos there are about gut health, weight loss, etc. So TikTok has been that place for really quick and easy health information that isn't necessarily accurate. And so now I'm really pleased to see that they're being proactive in getting content creators on board to help them. It's very early stages at the moment. We've just had our initial meeting. There's about 20 of us or so from different specialties, different levels of training, and I'm pleased to see they're doing it, but it's a case of seeing, let's see where it goes. I can't say much more than that because it's in its initial stages, but I'm really, really grateful to be part of it. So yeah, others definitely need to up their A game. And I think what's also so important is we need to have better guidelines from our regulatory bodies. So the GMC does have social media guidelines, but they're so vague and generic that it's actually quite hard to have any specific kind of insight from it. So I know that British Dietetic Association, British Dietetic Association, the BDA, dietitians regulatory body, they have social media training as part of their university dietetic degrees. And I think Association for Nutrition have a lot embedded in their nutrition course as well. So I do think that medical schools, if we're talking bottom up, big tech are doing their thing up here. If we're talking bottom up, we really need to get healthcare professionals trained up in social media literacy. Because unfortunately, what's so nuanced about the issue, it's not just the fitness and wellness influencers. Healthcare professionals could be part of the problem as well, with either knowingly spreading misinformation or not knowingly. And then unfortunately, the public see doctor fall into the authority bias, cognitive trap, and boom, doctors are just as bad as, a fitness influencer. So yeah, lots of facets that this issue needs to be tackled from lots of different angles.
I hope they keep you in that conversation, because I think some of those insights are so important to have. And I think also realizing that as doctors, we also have the duty to ensure that whatever we post out there, if we're getting involved in content creation, we actually evaluate and think, okay, are we saying, is it credible? Is it accurate? Is it what, for example, those bodies would want us to say? And is it something that the patients would find useful, etc.? So I think that's also important to keep us accountable.
And being aware of our own biases as well, I think is really important when creating content.
Yeah, and just going off of that as well, in terms of misinformation, where should the public and also healthcare professionals, where should we go to then for, reputable advice, evidence-based advice? Because at least to me right now, I don't know too much about the subject myself, but I wouldn't know where to go personally to find, stuff that I know I can trust. It's sort of evidence-based. Where would that be currently?
So obviously the NHS website, without a doubt, but the problem is it's not jazzy, sexy, engaging. So it's not necessarily appealing to the younger generations who want, type, quick video, watch it. So I would very much suggest a few brilliant healthcare content creators accounts. So Dr. James O'Donovan has a brilliant YouTube channel, and he's actually just interviewed Wes Streeting. So he's really someone who's got a hero story, and he's built his channel to get to thousands, and now he's interviewing Secretary of Health and many others that I can recommend. But there's also a brilliant charity called Patient Information Forum, PIF, and they have something called the PIF tick. And the director, Sophie Randall, spoke at the conference I organized on Monday. And PIF essentially has an amazing panel of experts from healthcare professional backgrounds that goes through patient information sources and regulates them. So they'll do that for charities, they'll do that for the NHS website, they'll do that for other bodies. And if you get a PIF tick, that is credible, accessible, evidence-based information. So I very much recommend looking for that PIF tick and looking at what organizations are associated with that.
Amazing, that's really useful. Just to touch on something you mentioned earlier, so you mentioned about the opportunities you've been able to get through social media. Can you just expand on kind of what other opportunities have you been able to achieve through your work?
Yeah, I mean, some are just ones that I think are really cool for my own, just like girly basic bitch self. So I recently done a partnership with Maybelline, which is about their Brave Together campaign for mental health work that they're doing, which means a lot to me because it's a brand that I adore. It completely appeals to my girly makeup loving self, but they're actually have a huge audience and they're using their brand for good by getting out mental health messaging and using someone who is credible compared to someone who, I don't know, wouldn't be. And so that was a cool opportunity. And then other opportunities have been speaking at conferences about doctors' mental health. And I recently did this really random partnership with Viagogo, which is a ticketing platform, which was all about going to concerts on your own and writing about tips to go solo gigging. And I thought that was really cool because I love the arts, and I go to the cinema by myself, so I'm all about like spreading that message. And then from medtech perspective, I've worked with Patchwork Health, which is all about creating better working conditions for healthcare professionals and helping with the locum work and rota, helping with the rota. So yeah, a bunch of opportunities that are really diverse, as you can tell, but are all I only take opportunities that are meaningful to me and are what's the word? And are legitimate and safe. So I've been approached by a lot of supplement companies. I actually been approached to talk about GB News approached me to talk about how penis size has reduced over the past decade or something, and that was obviously an opportunity I turned down, as you can imagine. So yeah, lots of opportunities come my way, but you have to have discernment and yeah, rely on what is acceptable to take and what's not.
And what impact has your health videos and content creation had? Have you had any feedback and comments from people watching your videos?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of what keeps me going amongst other healthcare content creators. And it comes down to me sharing about my mental health journey and being really open about my own vulnerabilities and my lived experience. And I've got a lot of DMs from medical students, from senior consultants. It actually doesn't really matter the age. A lot of people, mental illness doesn't discriminate, and a lot of people find my content relatable no matter where they're coming at it from. And it's really heartwarming to hear that something that I've written about or that I've spoken about has helped them, or that they've used one of the support lines. Like, I always put crisis services and signpost them in my posts, and I'll get a message from someone saying, I've been having a really bad day, I'm feeling suicidal, I have actually used the support service that you signposted, so thank you, and that kind of thing. So yeah, a bunch of really wonderful messages.
That's so heartwarming, actually. And I think
mainly, sorry, yeah,
that,
just to carry on, mainly a lot around med students saying, should I declare my mental illness on my application, and that kind of thing. And those are a lot of the messages I get. Yeah.
I think that's really important, because a lot of the time people can think that by declaring any of the mental health issues they're having, it's going to have a negative impact on their career, when in actuality it won't. It's actually probably going to work out better, because it means then you can get the right support to help continue on and ensuring that you are as supported as possible throughout, med school and your career. And I think what makes your account, from my perspective anyway, really kind of inspiring is that vulnerability and authenticity that you show. Because a lot of the times when you see content creators, you can either follow them because they're giving out certain information, but then there's some you follow because of that personal connection. And I think that's something you mentioned earlier from the beginning, the fact that with your account you've been able to create that connection with people in that community, which I think is so valuable to so many people.
I think nowadays there's a lot of copy and pasting in terms of social media as well, so that personal connection is becoming more and more rare. So yeah, it is really important, I think, that especially.
Thanks. No, I really appreciate that. I have this like balance, or what's the word? I have this kind of internal conflict, because I see a lot of creators kind of create stories saying, guys, what content do you want to see? This, or this. And I think to myself, I don't want to, I want to have followers, of course I do, but I also don't want to be chained to what they want.
Yeah.
But that's how it works. I'm not very good at playing the game, which is why my accounts aren't as big as other content creators, because I don't want to kind of not be authentic. So I don't really say like, guys, do you want to see this? I'm just like, this is what I'm doing today. And like it or not.
Yeah. Kind of linking to that, what's kind of your process for creating your videos? Do you have a process, or is it that you just post whatever you think is interesting to you and you think might be interesting to others?
Yeah, so me as a person, I'm quite unmethodical and pretty much go from a creative fuel rather than measured, methodical, let's trial and error things really kind of scientifically. So my process is quite messy and wouldn't say it's particularly replicable. But a lot of the time, the stuff I will say that is a good tip is I will use awareness days, despite obviously having a bit of a nuanced opinion about awareness days, because it's essentially holds me accountable to create something around a period of noise where I think people will be listening more. So World Suicide Prevention Day, World Mental Health Day, and Stress Awareness Day, the kind of awareness days that are meaningful to my work. And then the rest of the time is really just, here's my life. I spoke at this conference. This might be of interest to you, and talking about life as a psychiatry resident doctor. And if I'm having an off day, I will not post. If I'm having an off week, I will not post. And then there will be some days where I'm feeling very organized, and I'll be like, right, film back to back, like TikTok style information videos, and then I'll have a whole batch and I'll send them, and then I'll put those out for like a good fortnight. But yeah, no method really, just a lot of madness.
No, that's great. I think that's probably the best way to do it, really, because you still enjoy it, it's still fun. You don't feel like you're working. Yeah.
I definitely feel like I've got a lot to learn still, especially from my really TikTok savvy content creator friends, because they have a real method and a real setup, which I'm still working on.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I guess moving now towards nutrition, specifically nutrition education. You've talked before on podcasts about how that's an issue that still needs sorting, I guess. What would you say are the main sort of issues in regard to nutrition education, both at med school and also, for training doctors?
So I'd say with med school, there's been a huge amount of improvement, and Yasmin's a testament to that. I'd say Imperial College London is one of the leading med schools who have really taken lifestyle medicine into their own hands and jazzed up the curriculum in a really sustainable way. So undergraduate wise, where NutriTank focused, where we focused our work initially because we were med students at the time 8 years ago, undergraduate wise, there's been a lot of improvement. You've got Brighton and Sussex as well that are doing a brilliant job,
Mhm.
as is Bristol, where I went to med school. There's still obviously disparity because in the same way that every NHS trust is its own business, every med school is its own business, and it's very hard to have a standardized agreement across every med school of a certain amount and a certain quality of nutrition education. So you kind of end up having good pockets of practice or good case studies. So it's moving on its way. Postgraduate wise is not doing good. I really, really wish that there was a greater emphasis on proactive medical care and holistic healthcare in every medical specialty, and it would be in the membership exams. But as far as I know, to my knowledge, there really isn't much. Having said that, I don't take my word for it from a GP perspective because I don't know what is in their GP membership exams, but I do believe that assessment drives learning. And if you don't put nutrition into the OSCEs in med school or into, um, for instance, in psychiatry, we've got a CASC, which is essentially a psychiatry OSCE.
Hmm.
If you don't put nutrition and lifestyle training into those, then you're not going to create sustainable change. So I think we still have a very long way to go, but my mission is to really get more nutrition into psychiatry. And I've recently co-authored a nutritional psychiatry chapter along with one of my favorite consultants, Dr. Pratima Singh. And it's for a Cambridge Press lifestyle psychiatry textbook that will be published in October 25. And for me, what I would love to see is more nutritional counselling within psychiatry care, because we know that people with severe mental illness, so schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar, we know that they have an early mortality gap where they are at risk of mortality 10 to 20 years younger than the general population, which is so devastating. And a lot of it is due to cardiovascular risk and metabolic issues from their illness, but also from the medications that we put them on. So I think it's ridiculous that nutrition and lifestyle isn't already kind of part of psychiatry training in a really big way, but nothing really surprises me. I think Western healthcare systems fall very short when it comes to proactive approaches.
Hmm. I guess, yeah, there's a lot to be done then, it seems. But maybe on an individual level, how do you think we can empower ourselves to give the best nutritional advices as medics?
I think medics need to definitely have the right training, because my worry is with medics giving out nutrition advice is that they don't necessarily see nutrition as a strong science. So it kind of becomes a case of Joe blogs or any untrained person can talk about nutrition, but they actually do need to have a baseline, having done an SSC. So I did the culinary medicine SSC at Bristol and had a lot of dietetic training input and did a lot through NutriTank, many hours of CPD, nutrition education webinars, you name it. But I do think that for medics to give out nutrition advice, they need to have training. So that would be my first point. The second point is they need to also look after themselves. And it's not a case of being super rigid and saying, if I don't look, if I don't look the part, I can't talk about it, because I think that's completely backwards. But I think if we can take an 80-20 approach where 80% of the time we are making the right nutritional choices for ourselves, then we can really role model to patients what having a sustainable dietary pattern looks like. Unfortunately, I would say our hospital food environments are quite obesogenic, which is really troubling in itself. So I wouldn't say that medics have it easy, because their occupational working environment is not an easy place to stay healthy if you're not meal prepping. But I think, getting into the habit of meal prepping is wonderful, but it shouldn't just be on the individual. You should be able to purchase good quality food at your place of work, which, as far as I know, because we're doing a national study on it at the moment, there's very little good quality canteen lunches for medics. Have you guys found any different?
No, yeah, that was something I wanted to bring up as well. Yeah, I think it's awful. I
Yeah,
guess it's just it increases that threshold of effort required to eat healthily. And I
yeah.
guess what we need to do is get that as low as possible, such that more people can intuitively, or even by accident, at least eat healthier.
And that's why I'll never preach, like when you say what can medics do to kind of food themselves up more with nutrition, I'll never preach or judge, because I believe that our occupational environments do not help us one bit. And some people have kids, some people are picking up extra locum shifts because of finances, so they don't have time to meal prep. So there'll never be any judgment from me. I just do wish that there was a better education on how to eat healthily on a budget, in a quick and easy, convenient way, and that there was the environment to echo good principles as well.
Talking about, nutrition education, then, can you tell us more about kind of NutriTank? Why you started it, and what's kind of the newest innovations and projects that you're working on at the moment?
Absolutely. So, In, who is a junior doctor currently living in Melbourne, Australia, we met at medical school and we started NutriTank in 2017. And we essentially were so frustrated that we weren't being taught anything around nutrition. Well, we were being taught about the Krebs cycle and like the biochemical stuff around it, but nothing translatable to actually help Mrs. Smith, who's got fatty liver and is pre-diabetic and has multiple other risk factors, and actually wants to make a change and says, "Doc, what should I do?" So we were really frustrated by that, realized it wasn't actually just an issue with our medical school, but a national slash global issue with the westernized healthcare systems prioritizing pharmacological interventions over proactive and preventative healthcare. So we wanted to do something about it. And so NutriTank was created to essentially fill that gap around lack of nutrition and lifestyle medicine education. And we've now evolved into serving over 6,000 healthcare professionals, and we also still support students. So we started off mainly just for medical students, but now we're for every healthcare professional and healthcare student. And we run weekly CPD accredited nutrition and lifestyle medicine webinars led by experts that are just brilliant and such cool topics. We've got one coming up about coffee and how it can be preventative in type 2 diabetes. So really interesting and engaging topics. And we still have our NutriTank Med School network, which is going strong, and they have their local communities whereby they put on their own nutrition and lifestyle medicine events. Yasmin knows very well. She put on an Imperial Nutrition Conference a couple years in a row, and they also can influence their med school curricula. And we've also done a lot of top-down policy change, working with Department of Health. We got an extra clause added into the 2019 NHS long-term plan for a greater commitment to nutrition education for frontline NHS staff. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey. Lots of trials and tribulations, many learnings. And so where we're looking ahead is we want to be the leading platform for nutrition and lifestyle medicine education. And we really want to get into the NHS. So those are kind of conversations that we're having at the moment. And we really hope to up the postgraduate training game as well.
That's fabulous. You mentioned just before about there have been many learnings. Would you be able to share some of those learnings that you've picked up on the way setting up NutriTank?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd say one of my big learnings is that even if you kind of want collaboration over competition with fellow organizations and things like that, it doesn't always work out like that. So, politics is something that, and conflict resolution is just something that you really need to have a good grapple on when you start your own business and venture, so like what you guys are doing, and making sure that you don't personalize things, and that those kind of barriers don't stop you from achieving your mission and mission and vision. You know, a lot of it, you can meet some really strange characters along the way, and a lot of it can be quite testing, especially when you're young and naive and you didn't expect there to be kind of yeah, bad behavior to in that sense professionally, but you learn from it, and as long as you've got a team and you can support one another, I think that's unbelievably crucial. And I think one of my biggest learnings is teamwork, and knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, and being complimentary with those that you're working with, and being able to be honest with them when things aren't working. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting trajectory, but it'll hold you in such good stead.
Mm. I think it's that idea that realizing that, you know, we all have our own space within this. It's not like you're having to compete for that space. It's actually, if you come together, like you can all hold your own space in the field and then make that difference in a collaborative way. Which is, I think, what you perfectly showcase that through all the work. And as someone who's worked within each tank, like I can attest to that so much. So yeah, it's been amazing to see the growth. And yeah, I really hope it just continues to grow, and you guys are, well, I think you already are the number one organization for any nutritional advice. Even now at Imperial, I hear people talk about NutriTank, and I'm like, wow, like that's all because of all your work. So I think you should be really proud. Um, Amazing. And then I just wanted to kind of discuss in terms of the entrepreneurial side, how has setting up NutriTanks, impacted how you see entrepreneurship, etc.
Yeah, it's taught me a lot in terms of having a team, like what I said, in terms of knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, and knowing where you need to fill those gaps, essentially, because you can't do everything, and you always need to be able to delegate and have people with the right skill sets in those positions. Um, I think being part of the NHS Clinical Entrepreneurship Programme has been incredible as well. And I always encourage people to join it. They've actually just closed their latest cohort now, but you're on it, aren't you? Or not?
No, no, no.
Right.
Fine. Okay,
So we'll
well,
see soon, maybe. Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. Being part of that network has been incredible, because I've met so many like-minded people and realized I'm not alone in wanting to do more outside of medicine, because I felt at medical school I actually did feel really alone, to be honest. Thank God I started NutriTank within and we did it together, but I wasn't around other medical students from my own medical school who um yeah, had that kind of same side hustle. And it's not to say like I was better than them for having a side hustle or anything like that. We just had different passions, and I went out less and I wasn't sporty. So, everyone has their own different kind of things, and mine was entrepreneurship. And it did feel lonely at times, and I remember like not being honest with my housemates, always like, oh, like what are you doing this weekend? Like I would go to the library a lot and work on NutriTank, and do you know what I mean? But I didn't always feel comfortable saying that. Yeah, so I think being part of the NHS entrepreneurship program, meeting people on that, it's been incredible, because I realized I'm not alone. I learned so much from them, and it also just opened you up to other opportunities. So, I've given talks for some other people's startups and organizations who are on the program, and you learn what each other do. And it really, for me, I love public speaking, and so entrepreneurship has really allowed me to get clearer with my communication and with pitching. and just people skills really. So yeah, lots I've learned, but lots that I'm still learning, and I definitely feel like I am not CEO material at this point in my life. So in is much stronger in that sense for me. I've realized I've gone through like a real realization of what my strengths are, and I think I'm very much more around like what's called a brand evangelist, which is like spreading the word about the brand, getting people to join the community, being like the people's person and like a super connector, which are my strengths. And I'd say that I thought I once wanted to be a CEO, and I definitely don't at this point in my life. I don't think. Yeah.
No,
It's
that's awesome that you've sort of learned more about your strengths and you want to follow what you're good at, and then you're aware and accepting of maybe something that you're maybe less interested in doing, and
yeah.
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say I couldn't learn kind of more management style, yeah, more management kind of skills in terms of managing finances, fundraising, all of that. But yeah, at this point in time, I'm more interested because my time is really limited in doing what I like doing. Yeah.
Awesome. And just to, I guess, polish off everything we've talked about in regard to nutrition, what are the most uh, harmful sort of nutrition myths that are out there currently? Maybe like the top one or two, just so I can avoid
Are
it
bad.
myself.
That is one great myth that I think is really sad and is quite perpetuated in disordered eating and orthorexia kind of circles on and like the gym kind of circles online. And I think that's quite a devastating one because we really need carbs to function. And whilst I always would say, try have more complex carbohydrates in your diet and have carbohydrates that have higher fiber content, swap out white pasta for brown pasta, white rice for brown rice, white bread for whole wheat bread, the whole malarkey, etc. I think that 80-20 approach is still so important. Of course, you can have refined carbohydrates, and it's all about your overall dietary pattern over a period of time rather than one bad day. So I'd say that's one as well. I'd say another one that really bothers me are just kind of the diet religions, like go carnivore or go vegan, and them being so strong on one or the
Mhm.
other. And I think it's so important that every individual has a diet that represents their culture and what their tastes are, and they should do what works for them based on the evidence that a dietitian or registered nutritionist gives them, rather than kind of falling for influencers who are very dogmatic about their eating style and approach.
Yeah.
So I'm all about the nuance, to be honest. And I just think it's so important to look out for those red flags when you see anyone saying like this is a cure all, like this supplement is a cure all panacea, or this is how you should eat, or eat what I eat, this is what I eat in a day, and those kind of videos. I think it's just so crucial that we have more nuance with nutrition information. But unfortunately, the algorithm loves the clickbait kind of dogmatic, one-dimensional statements. So it's a bit of a tricky one we're up against.
Well, I hope that we can try to, like you said, increase that training for all healthcare professionals. So then we can ensure that we can at least advise our patients with that after that training, advise them to kind of avoid that kind of clickbait information and myths out there.
Yeah, and just educating people about supplements and probiotics, because so many people will waste their money on probiotics that are, it's probably one of the most unregulated products on the market, and many of them will lie about what strains of bacteria they put in, and we just don't have enough data at the moment to take probiotics in a personalized way, because we don't even know really what the optimal healthy microbiome looks like. We just know that diversity of different microbe populations is really key. So it's very tricky when you have all the marketing in your face, and just educating people on that.
Yeah, it reminds me, I did my EPQ project actually on the gut microbiome and whether probiotics and prebiotics, influence it at all. And I remember reading a lot of research papers at the time, and I remember one of them said conflict of interest. And it was like sponsored by Yakult. And I was like, well, clearly then the results are going to be so skewed because Yakult promote themselves as, pin down that they have probiotics in their drinks, etc. So I think it is just really interesting to see how the marketing can have such an influence on the information that's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just coming on now to more kind of general stuff to sum up this podcast. I wanted to ask, how do you manage it all? You do so much, and for some medical students and doctors out there, they may be interested in that kind of, like you said, portfolio career, dipping their toes in their passions. So, what advice would you give to them in terms of management, time
So
management?
I'd say it looks like I do a lot. And it's not to say that I don't, but I did start a while ago. So I do want to put that out there that I started kind of my portfolio career at medical school 8 years ago or so. And I was always kind of doing little things as you both are. So that's, how I've kind of built it up. And time management wise, I definitely don't get it right all the time. So it's still an evolving learning for me of knowing what my limits are. And I just have this mantra that I constantly try and say to myself to remind myself that I can't be everything to the world but nothing to myself, because I have a huge vision to add value and be of service to others, and I have to be of service to myself as well. So time management wise, I would say that for me, enjoyment equals efficiency. So a lot of the time I will take on opportunities that I enjoy, get into flow state, and it doesn't feel like um it's a burden or anything. Like that's how I kind of feel about content creation. Like I'll just do it when I'm commuting or whatever, like in a kind of opportune moment. And then I'm just very savvy with emails and trying to stay on top of communications, but I would say that every week's a bit different and I'm not always on top of it, but I try my best. So yeah, time management skills don't really have like an Ali Abdul kind of productivity guide, because I'm, as I said, I'm not that methodical type. I'm far more kind of intuitive, and when I feel like putting time and effort into things, I do.
I
So
think that's good to show though, because I think a lot of the time people think that you need to be that methodical type, like the Ali Abdaal,
yeah,
and keep on top of that. When actually, in fact, not everyone is like that, and it's understanding your own style of working, etc. And if that kind of
exactly.
works
I'm
for you,
far more like intuitive and creative, and I feel like there are a lot of productivity gurus who are amazing. So Ali's work is great, and Grace Beverly, she's a brilliant female founder. She wrote that book, Hardly Working, Working Hard.
yeah,
And when I read her book, I didn't resonate with any of it really, because it was so rigid, like all the grids of important, not important, and all of that. And that might work for some people, not to say she hasn't helped so many people, but my learning style is very much based on listening to what my internal values are, and
yeah.
checking in with my own energy levels and asking myself what my why is. Why am I even doing this? And getting my own level, getting my own kind of compass of discernment. Should I take this opportunity? Should I not? What am I going to get out of it? So yeah, I'm much more of like a feeler than a thinker.
I love that, and I love that idea of always kind of coming back to your sense of why, your sense of purpose with everything you do. And for those out there who are wanting to kind of put themselves out there, explore those passions further, do you have any advice for kind of building that confidence to putting yourself out there and getting outside your comfort zone?
Yeah, absolutely. I should also just say, in terms of time management, I have a lot of support from my family and husband, and they always tell me that and remind me of that every day. So they often
Yeah.
say why you can do what you do is because we help you. So yeah, that's also true. And not everyone has that. So I'm very grateful that yeah, when I don't feel like cooking, someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting yourself out there, it's an interesting one because I do think there's kind of a relationship between confidence and competence, whereby sometimes people are confident but not competent, so they have no issue with putting themselves out there. But medics who are kind of perfectionists and are always, this is a massive generalization, are kind of more in tune with getting things right and not failing and being, you know, as competent as possible. They will lack the confidence until they feel like they're at that 100% level, which is really unrealistic. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be to honestly go for it. And if, you know, the content doesn't take, keep going. You have to find your own kind of style and voice. And it doesn't matter if it flops, because, you know, every content creator who's been doing it for years will tell you that their early videos were hilarious to look back on because they've come so far. So you just have to be open to the learning curve, and you can only learn experientially by putting yourself out there and seeing how it takes in real time. So it's a bit of a jump, but once you put out your first few videos or LinkedIn posts, you really will be able to kind of get into the practice and realize, what was I so afraid of? Oh, it doesn't matter that tanked. There's always another day for another post. So that would be my kind of take on it. I do think medics can be really hard on themselves, and any other person would just kind of go for it with 100% confidence and maybe very little kind of backing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, yeah, we absolutely are perfectionists. It's drilled into us from a young age, and it's breaking that cycle and, you know, going a bit out of your comfort zone. And if it fails, so what? You know, at least I've tried. That sort of attitude, I think, would help a lot of people, me included. And I guess as a sort of maybe finisher now, what are your sort of top tips for
Yeah.
anyone interested in building a portfolio career, I guess, like you've done? What are tangible things they can do and implement into their lives currently?
So I'd say networking and finding mentors are absolutely paramount, and also just getting to grips with what you like and what you dislike. And so go to conferences that you think sound cool, if it's, you know, AI and health and whatever, and then you realize, oh, do you know what, I'm completely not interested in this. But if you wouldn't have gone, you wouldn't have realized, you know. And I always say, like, even if a conference feels like a waste of time, you would have gained something, because if you network there and you find out what someone's doing, you never know when you can call upon them in the future and it might be of use. So for me, I'm a really big advocate of networking, and I feel like I it's kind of been part of me from a really young age. I really have always loved, like, I went traveling on my own in my gap year, and I love hearing other people's stories, and I'm a big in and I am a big extrovert. So I really do love, yeah, talking to people. But I do think introverts have amazing skill set when it comes to networking as well, because they're such brilliant listeners. So I definitely wouldn't sell yourself short on that basis, and get yourself on LinkedIn, connect with people, put yourself out there. You never know what opportunities can come your way. And, you know, in the beginning, and I sometimes still do, if I see a cool conference, I'm always like, do you need more speakers? Or if they're full, they'll be like, well, can you help promote it? And I'm like, yes, I can help promote it, but can I get a discount? So you always have to just have this little negotiation skill set with you, because one thing that I really dislike seeing is medical students selling themselves short and doing too much work for free. And I've had that many a time. I've done far too much for free, and so you really need to know your self-worth and value. And if you are doing something for free, ask for something in return. So if I'm asked to promote something, I'm like, okay, but I want a free ticket, or I want discount for Nutritank, or whatever it is. So just always have your wits about you, and not to say be so transactional, because we're humans too. Not everything has to be quid pro quo, but don't be taken advantage of. I've been taken advantage of so many times as a young female. So definitely have your wits about you and know when to say no.
Yeah, I love that advice. And as someone as well who I feel like I need to always assess whether to take things on so I don't get taken advantage of or do stuff for free. I think that's such good advice. So it's a pleasure to have you on, Ali. Thank you so much for spending the time today to speak to us. Just before we end, would you be able to share your socials? So for anyone who's interested in following your journey further, they can, get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So my website's dralijaffee.com, and then I'm Dr. Ali Jaffee on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I'm on them all. I'm on them all. And then follow NutriTank too. It's NutriTank_official on Instagram and NutriTankCIC on LinkedIn. And our website's www.nutritank.com, and we've got amazing webinars, so do join.
I can attest to that too. Amazing. Thank you so much, Ali. Pleasure as always, and can't wait to keep following your journey. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. Absolutely love what you guys are doing. It's really all that I stand for, and can't wait to see where it goes and how many people in the community that you serve, and show that there is more to life than clinical medicine if that's what you want.